Predator Badlands, let's dive right in. There are things I love regarding the whole idea of this new Predator film. The stimulating premise of Badlands is that the Predator or Yautja has now become the main lead for once, the protagonist. This represents a broader appeal among serious audiences, a well-needed formula change and an infusion of new but creative ideas that will ultimately save Hollywood from extinction. At least when it comes to our beloved sci-fi and horror genres that have suffered regurgitated story themes for a while now. But the idea alone doesn't mean we have ourselves a winner. However, the director of Badlands, Dan Trachtenberg, more or less delivered a solid film in 2022's Prey. And this teaser far from disappoint, so let's get into it. I'm going to jump about the trailer as I want to talk about what stood out the most rather than cover it from start to finish. Firstly, this small tease has much to enjoy, especially if you're a fan of the franchise and are somewhat aware of the basic lore and particular connections that potentially expand on the universe or universes. I'm getting to that. My only concern with what I feel could be a great movie here is this coy flirting we sometimes see, not just here but in other instances as well, that suggests one day we will receive a definitive crossover, a merge of the Predator and Alien universe made whole. And hey, listen, I'm all up for new ideas and stuff. If they want to have these separate Predator films like AvP that fuse together what we love, whilst keeping it fun, then great. But I honestly don't know if I'd appreciate it if they made this merge official. We see the Weyland-Yutani logo twice in the trailer. Once printed on a yellow industrial truck of some kind and the other labelled in the eyes of the company Synthetic, maybe gone rogue, played by Ellie Fanning. Now, the next thing to arrive from the Alien universe is the TV series from FX that I'm super looking forward to. However, other than some comics and novels, the main Alien films have never acknowledged a shared universe. So the real test will be to see if the series Alien Earth will tease this also. Because if it does, then that's solid confirmation of what they are planning as far as I'm concerned. This worries me a little because you know how Hollywood is these days, franchise power just isn't enough anymore. It's all about the crossoverse and multiverse because apparently audiences have not the attention span we once did for enjoying great singular stories that could inspire us just based on its own merit. Well, it's that, and I genuinely believe that the Alien saga doesn't need Predators in it. There are already two vicious villains in the franchise, one of which doesn't screw its own species over for a percentage, Disney. But I'd love to hear where you guys stand on this one in the comments, please. If any tie-in to Alien is even plausible, in my mind it would be Blade Runner. Speaking of Disney, and this is the last bit of nitpicking I promise, how did you feel when you first saw our protagonist in Badlands, who apparently is named Deck? Did you also initially think, what's wrong with this picture? Something feels off but I can't look away. I don't know, maybe he'll grow on me. At first I assumed it was the Ragnar Viking-inspired hairstyle, or had more to do with our man here during his first big hunt, perhaps having not grown to full maturity. With more of those iconic dreadlocks missing than ever before. It almost reminded me of when your dog returns home from the vet with a portion of its head shaved, and you suddenly recoil in horror at seeing your best buddy in a new light and stripped of its dignity. You could argue it's the shaved sides and a lack of a helmet, but really what's happening here is that they've given this new Predator a little more facial flexibility in terms of his ability to express emotion, therefore conveying empathy to the audience, which is what is to be expected of any film's leading actor. I get it, adding some humanity to this physically imposing alien hunter makes him more relatable. But in doing so, has the Predator just become slightly Disneyfied compared to the staunch, stone-faced juggernaut we've always known him to be? It's difficult to be harsh after only seeing a quick glimpse, as to be honest, when he begins to roar in the next moment, it does evoke that nostalgic chill as his form returns, so I'm undecided on the aesthetics for now. Moving on, let's nerd out about the rest of it, shall we? The trophy wall is back. And I know it's easy to read far too into these skulls, but my guess is it's just designed to keep people talking and spark debate. Some great looking trophies, some familiar ones if you like dinosaurs, and others hint at other franchises. This could almost be a xenomorph if it was elongated, and the skull that looks like a comfortable chair is very reminiscent of the ETs that invaded Earth in Independence Day. Then again, were those things not established as a biomechanoid suit designed to house and protect smaller beings? I do appreciate the mystery, however. The human android says,
I didn't think you survived.
I take that to mean we will see some kind of resurrection story, a redemption arc. In this film, he's undoubtedly the underdog. Even when up against weaker foes such as mere humans, they still manage to outnumber him, posing a threat. What's interesting and something I can't quite figure out is how the sequence of events is possible. We see this authority figure within the Yaotra race defeat and cast another of its species into a vast cave. If this is our hero and the execution scene here does take place before the main events of the film, then not only does this narrative have great allure because I love a comeback story, but how on earth, or not on earth rather, does he regrow his lost arm that was severed in the attack? Well, this could be what makes the relationship and alliance between David's long-lost sister or Wayland's wayward daughter and the young wounded predator very interesting. And I would have to assume this will be a partnership that is mutually beneficial. However the film tries to explain the presence of humans and an android on this planet is unknown for now. Let's say that Weyland-Yutani has an invested interest here. Will the company's technology, in this case medical, be commandeered by the female synthetic and then used by her to repair or regrow the predator's arm, enabling him to continue his hunt and a newly made quest for revenge? It's a compelling and straightforward plot, but it makes me incredibly curious to learn why she and her makers are here in this world in the first place. Furthermore, suppose these humans are employees of Weyland-Yutani. In that case, they seem to have quite the foothold established on this unknown and extremely hostile planet, suggesting something of great importance to them. And this is definitely a battle I'm looking forward to seeing unfold, by the way. I do wonder, however, and this is going out on a limb, but the synthetic woman may have just given us another clue. She says, "You're hunting something that cannot be killed."
You're hunting something that can't be killed.
She could simply be implying that whatever creature this young predator initially set out to hunt is dangerous and hard to kill. But who else made such a chilling statement, and from what film?
There's gotta be a way of killing it. How? How do we do it?
You can't. It's bullshit.
All I'm saying is that it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if, after lots of hinting and 2 aging Alien vs Predator movies, they finally decided to bridge these two entities once and for all. Again, I'm not a big fan of this idea in an official capacity, but we do know that Disney did not just purchase this IP for a couple more films and we're done. No, they have plans for longevity, and so far, at least, it's looking way better than Star Wars. Other than Andor, of course, because that show is a masterpiece. Therefore, although we glimpse a few devastatingly ferocious manifestations of fauna and flora in this hostile world, I'm intrigued to know what the real threat is. Will it be the dreaded xenomorph, or even a queen perhaps? In fact, who else can almost, and I say almost, hear the hauntingly recognisable sound of her hissing during the title outro? So yeah, overall, I love what I'm seeing here. It's visually impressive, maybe aside from the I Am Groot CGI tentacle fighting in the last part of the teaser. But I expect it to be deeply fun and with about the same amount of okayish tension that Prey managed to conjure up. It does boast a more action-orientated, explosively entertaining and vastly more exotic Predator movie than anything we've experienced before. Perhaps more than the role reversal and other creative elements we'll encounter. I'm more excited to discover how they've explored both the Predator and Alien lore, and more importantly, what new narrative this has formed in Badlands involving the company's interests. Remember, this is just a teaser, and I imagine we'll learn much more in the full-length trailer when it arrives soon. Thanks for watching, and take care, compadres.